Good day, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Explores Australia. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're still hanging out in Australia. Thankfully, we've gotten past crocodile territory, where today we're hanging out on the border between the Northern Territory and Queensland. So, the southern part of the Northern Territory and the western part of Queensland, where today we look into one of Australia's most iconic habitats and animals, the Australian outback. And the king that we meet today? The red kangaroo, otherwise known by their Latin name of Osfranter rufus. Now, there are said to be many different species of kangaroo, but we're starting off with the largest species, and we'll maybe cover one or two more as we continue through the land down under. But as always, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal you want me to do in the future, you just got to send me an email, which you will always find the link to down in my description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's begin. With its family and its evolution. You know, this is a pretty unusual animal with an even weirder past. So, the kangaroo is thought to have originated from these ancient possum-like ancestors that once lived in Australia's rainforests around 20 million years ago. But by 15 million years ago, a number of these animals would leave the trees and would begin to come down to the ground, and they would eventually begin to evolve special adaptations like these huge long legs and this pretty strong tail. Now these legs served better than climbing in the trees, but instead were better for covering huge expanses of Australia's grasslands and other variety of habitats. Now this kind of kangaroo would kind of take on a little bit more of what we know the kangaroos today, though they're thought to have originated around 3 million years ago. Now the kangaroo itself is part of a family that's called the macropod or Macropodidae, which simply means Bigfoot or largefoot. And of course we know them to be marsupials, which basically is an animal that grows up in a pouch before it goes off on its own. These include the wombat, North America's possum, wallabies, the famous Tasmanian devil, even the koala is considered to be a kind of marsupial. Now, let's get into their habitat, lifestyle, and their reproduction. So, the red kangaroo basically lives in scrublands, grasslands, and desert regions, where water is not exactly the easiest to find, yet they are able to somehow make it through without even having to lose a lot of water or having to drink a lot. Of course, they do need water, but they have, like I said, they've been able to evolve special adaptations over millions of years to survive in Australia's harshest environment. Now, the red kangaroo, males sometimes will live solitary lives. However, more likely, they're going to be what you would call the boss of a mob. Now, here I'm not at all putting any ties into the mafia. That's not what it is. Simply put, the boss is what you call the male kangaroo that's in charge, and the mob is simply what you call the group of kangaroos. These groups usually contain just one male, and then the rest be a number of females and the offspring. The offspring would be his, of course, until another male kangaroo takes over and gets to be the boss. Now, sometimes these groups can actually number into well over 1,500 individual animals. Can you imagine seeing all those roos hopping at one time? Now, here comes a little bit of the weirdest part about the kangaroo, the birth. And I'm going to just warn you right now, might be a little difficult to explain. That's why I'm going to leave you all a link to a video that explains how a kangaroo's pregnancy and reproduction kind of takes place. But here I'm just going to kind of skip ahead to with the giving birth. So kangaroos do not give birth with like a placenta like most other mammals do. That doesn't exist in kangaroos. No. Instead, these babies are born almost the size of a kidney bean or a lima bean. Can you imagine having a baby that small? So when a kangaroo gives birth, Mom doesn't do anything to help assist with the birth. All she does is stay incredibly still. She's going to give birth to her baby, and then that baby has to literally crawl through that forest of hair until it can find the pouch where inside are the mother's teats. And then she can start moving as soon as she feels the baby latch on and begin to suckle from her. So that's the baby right there. Can you imagine holding your child in your hand like that? I certainly couldn't. Now, we know that, and I'm sure that was probably a little gross for some, and that's okay. So here's where we're going to see them now. Here is the animal that we know, the baby that we seem to know more about. This is what we call a joey. Now, the joey is basically mom's only baby, although she will actually, when there's one baby in the pouch, there's another that's almost soon getting ready to leave. So, in a sense, Mom is somewhat continuously pregnant. But like I said, I'm not going to go into too much depth because it might be a little confusing. So I'm going to I'm going to save you a video clip so that you can understand a little bit better than I could explain it. But Mom, what she does is she will carry that kid around at least until the baby is a year old. And even by reaching 12 months of age, baby will actually continue to suckle from Mom, and then eventually, Mom wants to teach her baby, or her joey, the most important food, which now we're going to get into, their diet, grass. So, it seems like the diet of grass is simple, but let's just take a little closer look at their diet. So, as I've said, they are heavy eaters of grass. But a study in Central Australia's kangaroos, they found that they were eating this one kind of grass that's actually during the dry season that is called Aragostosis setifolia, which actually takes up 54% of their diet. Now, this grass is very helpful for kangaroos as it continues to stay green right up all the way into the dry season. And during the hard times, they look for green grass by staying more closer to the open grasslands and near where there's water sources or like rivers and lakes. Now, while grasses are preferred, they'll also eat other kinds of plants that are that might be found more in the scrublands, like shrubs, especially when food is really scarce. And for kangaroos, they need to eat a lot. They're said to at least up to 14 pounds of grass a day just to survive. Now, here's a little special twist for you on today's episode. Usually, this is where I would tell you, and now we're going to end today's episode with their influence in human culture, but I thought, let's not do that because I think it's a little too obvious. Instead, I want to do something a little more interesting. I would like to talk to you about their locomotion, or what I like to call the boing. So, for most kangaroos, especially those that live in the outback, their form of locomotion is pretty unusual. You might think that they're constantly bouncing around all the time, but that's not really the case. So those front legs help them kind of stay on the ground, and as they move, the back legs kind of begin to move forward. But now we're talking about when they're actually hopping, or in their case, running. So it really does work a little bit like a rubber band. See, the Achilles tendon stretches as the animal comes down, and then it releases an amount of energy that helps the animal go up and forward at the same time, which enables its characteristic locomotion, or as I like to say, the boing. So thanks to this ability, they're known to jump at around 37 miles an hour, where a male kangaroo could cover a leap of nearly 10 feet of 9 feet and 10 inches, though usually they would just jump around 6.3 feet. Now, for today's episode, I'd like to end it with an early wild thing. If a kangaroo's foot was measured in human size or in a shoe size, the shoe size for a kangaroo would have to be a size 22. How big are your feet? Let me know down in the comment section below. But until next week's part 2, this is Safari Mack. and I'll see you all out there.